Hello, Instagram. So I'm going to start doing a new video series where every so often I get on here, and by every so often I mean hopefully monthly, maybe as infrequently as every 2 to 3 months. We'll see what I can pull off. But I get on here and tell you guys about the 4 smartest things that I've seen lately, either on social media, in journal articles, in textbooks. I won't tell you about textbooks. It'll all be internet-based stuff on other people's websites, on the Informed SLP's website. Basically, if you don't have time to look at anything at all, maybe the top 4 things that you as a pediatric SLP might want to see or know about. So let's get started. Okay, so thing number 1, if you don't currently belong to the Clinical Research for SLPs group on Facebook, I would highly recommend it. I am an admin of the group, but I am not the only admin of the group. There are 5 or 6 of us who basically invite people every week to come talk about different topics related to research applied to clinical practice and clinical practice applied to research and evidence-based practice in general. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you about is one of the recent discussions on there that was really, really good. So if you go to the group and search the hashtag week 31, you're going to get to a post by, or a series of posts by Holly Storkel on choosing diagnostic techniques or assessment techniques for speech sound disorders, specifically looking at the differences between the Goldman-Fristow 2 and the Goldman-Fristow 3. So as many of you may know or may have personally experienced, SLPs are having a lot of confusion in the transition between Gifted 2 and Gifted 3. And I won't explain the entire situation to you, but let me just give you a few tidbits that are going to make you want to go take a look at this. First of all, the Gifted 2 actually doesn't have any information in the manual about whether or not it was accurately diagnosing children. The Gifted 3 does, and the Gifted 3 is actually aligning pretty well with other strong standardized tests. So does that mean that you can use the Gifted 3 in the same way that you use the 2? Probably not, and that's probably a lot of the problem. But we're having a conversation over there on how to incorporate information from developmental norms and phonological error pattern norms as well, and using standardized tests along with norms together in order to make decisions. And also in that week, Dr. Storkel and others talk about some common errors people will make when qualifying children with speech sound disorders and how you can overcome or avoid those errors. So again, go to the Clinical Research for SLPs group on Facebook and search hashtag week 31. Set aside a good 10 minutes at least to read and digest the information so that you can fully process it, because it's kind of one of those mind blown type things if you had never thought about it that way before. So enjoy. Okay, so thing number 2, this next great tip that I'm going to tell you about is available in an open access free section of the Informed SLP's website. So you can find it by going to theinformedslp.com, and then the menu at the top, you're going to click free stuff and then go down to evidence answers to get you to our evidence Q&A section. Our evidence Q&A section is an area of the website where members can submit questions, and then we go and find an expert to answer that question and provide really high quality information because we specifically seek out people who know a lot about the topic that SLP is asking about, and then provide citations, links out to references, all that good stuff. So we recently had a really great one from one of our members that asked about, basically the member's concern was that the kids on her caseload that are from like 3rd to 6th grade, that she has a lot of them with language disorders, but she might not really be treating syntax. So this SLP was concerned that most of her therapy centered around like vocabulary activities and social activities, but not so much grammar. And the reason I think this is a really important question to ask is because I think it's actually really common for most SLPs. Based on what I used to do myself and what I've seen my peers do and what continues to be challenging for me and most SLPs, quite frankly, is knowing how to treat language disorders in older children. The more complex the language gets, sometimes the harder it gets to do great therapy with these kids because, quite frankly, the treatment can become more complex too, particularly if the SLP doesn't view himself or herself as an expert in syntax. So basically, this evidence answer goes through and explains to you how you would treat syntax in these older elementary kids. And this could also be carried up through middle school as well. The tips apply, but it's a really, really great post. And you can find it by, again, going to theinformedslp.com, free stuff, evidence answers, and then it's the question labeled school-aged syntax. Smartest thing number 3 is also a recent evidence answers. So this one came from, the question was from one of our members who basically wanted to know, how do I determine what the service grid needs to look like in terms of treatment intensity? How do I make that decision between 1 time per week versus 2 times per week versus 3 times per week? What about the difference between 20 minutes versus 30 minutes or 15 minutes versus 45 minutes? This is a question that is often on SLP's minds, and sometimes we get in the habit of just applying the same treatment intensity across all kids or all similar kids because, quite frankly, it's easiest and most convenient when you're putting together like a school-based SLP schedule or even a private practice SLP schedule when you have to consider drive time and all that stuff. But regardless, a lot of times people will ask us about what the best treatment intensity is based on the evidence. So over the past several months, I've been pulling research articles together, and I'm actually the one who wrote this post. So that's a little bias there for me to recommend my own work, but it's good. It's really good. You got to look at it. And it basically goes through for pediatric speech sound disorders and language disorders, a lot of the most recent evidence on how to decide about treatment intensity. I will tell you that after reading it, most of you will probably realize that most of what you're doing is right on anyway, but it can give you some ideas for new ways to approach it, new ways to think about treatment intensity that I bet you haven't before. And it's always good to kind of check in to what the evidence shows so that you can be confident that you're making good decisions for your students and clients. So again, you find this one by going to theinformedslp.com, free stuff, evidence answers, treatment intensity. Okay, our 4th smartest thing is a review that we recently had on the website in the preschool and school age section called, hold tight, I gotta look at what exactly it's called, Choosing Words for Preschoolers Who Use AAC. I wanted to make sure to get that right, so when you go to look it up, you can actually find it. But in the preschool section, there's a search box, and you can type in exactly that, Choosing Words for Preschoolers Who Use AAC, to get you straight to this review. But basically, it's a review of a research article that goes through and guides you and shows you some evidence behind how to do vocabulary selection for preschoolers. So this is something, again, that I think once SLPs get in there and look at it, you'll find that there's overlap in supporting or justifying what you're already doing and say, hey, I do that, I do that, I do that. But it's also going to give you a ton of tips for things you probably don't do when you're selecting vocabulary for the youngest kids on your caseload, when you're trying to build up either their PECS book or their AAC device, and you're trying to figure out, what type of things to start with when they're just at the beginning stages of developing good expressive language. And so this is a really great article. One of the things that makes it my favorite is there is a link out within both the journal article and within our review that takes you to the tool that you can use in order to help guide your vocabulary selection. And that is my favorite thing ever, when researchers provide the actual worksheets or tools or software or apps or whatever it is that they're researching when they just link out to it within the journal article so that SLPs can immediately get their hands on it and start using it. So this is one of those really great like free materials articles that is wonderfully useful to clinicians and that you can just pick it up and use it just like that. So enjoy. So what do you guys think? Is this 4 Smartest Things video series helpful to you? If so, let me know and I'll keep doing it. My goal is to start recording more videos for you guys. So we already have a lot of things that are text-based. Oh, here comes my kitty cat. Another goal is to promise myself not to edit the heck out of this thing. Come here, Lillian, you can come say hi. And so, because it makes it more efficient to me if I can, do this in under an hour and promise myself not to turn it into a whole day long project. But if you like something like this, I will keep doing it. If you want something slightly different via video, if you'd rather me explain or teach you about something else, let me know. And if this goes well, if you guys enjoy it, I'll just keep doing it. Maybe next time with the cat shut in the basement. I'm at my house right now in the library, and I also noticed that I have a lot of junk on the shelves behind me that I probably should take off because I'm supposed to be someone who's setting an example for great things to read. And on the shelf behind me, I've got all my books get out of the way, cat. Harry Potter and Aragon and teenage vampire mysteries and stuff. Not my books. So we'll get to the point where we've got this thing going nice and smooth. But for now, there's your 4 smartest things.